I'm Frank Stanisci of Candid Frank Live, where you'll find us airing our views here on the Spanglish World Network 3 times a week on Zingo TV, channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate, leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Candid Frank Live, joining me is Aaron William Freeland. Aaron, hi there. How's it going?
It's going well, Frank. How's things
Good,
with you?
good. It is a new week. We just like I always like to do. I like to talk about the Canadian Football League and the team I cover, the Toronto Argonauts, worked very hard this weekend. Their defense was perfect. Their offense was perfect. Their special teams didn't make a single mistake this weekend. And because of that, they find themselves alone in first place.
As it currently stands, they're 0-0 with 0 points.
And in
Uh,
first.
it's amazing how that works.
It goes to prove. It goes to prove trying to be sure not to make any errors is a good idea. Goes to prove don't do anything, because if you don't do anything, good things will happen.
No, this is one of those situations where, let's just plan the parade now. We're in first place. We're good.
Let's keep doing what they're doing, right? That's
Right.
what they're talking about. Yeah, we had a chance to talk to the Argos about that today. It was fun. It was funny. Anyway, they're alone in first, and that's because there are other three teams in their division, the Eastern Division, Ottawa, Hamilton, and of course Montreal. They all lost, and they all had a chance to win. We know that. Well, I'll start with BC and Edmonton, because I think the big story here was how good BC was and how not so good Edmonton was. And of course, there's the big story for me is, and this is the question of the week, a couple of Canadian quarterbacks in the same game scored a touchdown, and there was a third quarterback. How many times have we seen three quarterbacks in the same game? I don't think we've ever seen that. And if we did, it would have to be at the beginning when the Americans weren't coming up here. It would be the last time something like that would happen. And then have two of them score touchdowns on the same team. BC was questioned for what they did, Aaron. It seems to be turning out all right in the first game, and that was a lot of points they scored.
Well, I mean, after Riley decided that he was going to hang it up, Rourke definitely had to step everything up, and he was definitely up to the task. I mean, I'm just looking at the score line through the first half, and it was 42-6.
They scored more in the first half than any team scored in any game this past weekend, and probably going back a few games into last season. So yeah, it was. I loved watching the game. It was great seeing the CFL back. The stars were stars, and in this one, I guess the two key players were, as you mentioned, the quarterback Rourke, and of course Butler, who had what was it, 3 touchdowns all season last year, got 4 in one game.
No, and you know what? It's one of those things where I mean, he got his third touchdown of the game on a 21-yard run, so to help give the Lions a 21-6 lead. This is his 3 touchdowns matched his season total from last year, so
Amazing.
Everything seemed to be clicking on all cylinders. And from there, it was just all downhill for the odds. It just didn't end well for them at all. I mean, other than a blip in the third quarter where they outscored BC 9-7. The Elks. The Lions just shut the Elk down in the fourth quarter. So,
yeah, absolutely, it was. It was murder. It was terrible. So over in Saskatchewan, Mosaic Field, we saw something we haven't seen since 2017 at the inception of this stadium. One of the most beautiful stadiums in sport, not just the Canadian Football League. We saw speckled empty seats as something we haven't seen before. It was a little disconcerting, and word out of Saskatchewan, Regina in particular, is that People aren't going because the ticket prices are a little too high, but one has to recall and remember that to have that beautiful a stadium in a sport where you only play 10 home games, that's quite a bauble that you've purchased.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. Add on to that the $12 per ticket that the city gets, which actually helped Mosaic turn a profit last year for the first time since its building, and you've got a whole fraught series of issues there. I'm glad that they were able to pull out the win, 30-13 over the Cats. Um, but at the same time, that is something that they'll definitely need to keep an eye on.
Dane Evans, in the post game interview, was asked, basically about his game, and I think he took more heat than he deserved. I don't think he could be blamed as much as he was taking willingly. It was a team effort, and yes, as the quarterback, he gets most of the credit when the team plays well. He'll get most of the blame if the team doesn't play well, and good for him. He took it on his shoulders, and well, last year they lost their first two games. Hamilton did, so they're right on schedule to make it to the Grey Cup again.
I mean, looking at Evans' statistics, he was 22 of 32 for 222 yards, a touchdown, and two interceptions. So that's not all that. It's not great, but it's not necessarily all that bad either. So
Yeah, so
there is some comfort to be taken on that.
Yeah, so Saskatchewan takes that game, and David Morassutti and I in CFL Talk have been talking and bragging on the Ottawa Red Blacks. They rolled into the toughest place to play football, and that, of course, is in Winnipeg, Investors Field, or IG Field, they call it now, with an impressive revamped lineup, but they fell short to Winnipeg on banner night.
Yeah, no, it was actually a lot closer than I expected. I did not expect it to be 19-17. I mean, Colaros came through with 18 of 26 passes for 188 yards and a touchdown, but got pulled by the injury spotter after he took a hit to the head late in the game. Drew Brown came in and had a little bit of success, but as it stands,
Well, he did. He won the game for them, and
yeah.
Caleros was not pleased, with being taken out. And one could understand that. All one has to do is think of history, and they'll understand why Caleros. He does not want to be reminded or want people to remember the issues that he's had in his career. Those were very tough times for him. Being injured is one thing, but the emotional baggage that comes along with being injured when it comes to concussions, it can be, it can really create vapor lock in people's minds, whether it be the people that are watching the game, whether it be a coaching staff, whether it be a team, whether it be his teammates or he himself. It's a scary situation. We're not as in dire a situation as we've been in past years. People are beginning to understand, about head trauma more and more, and the more we protect players, the less it becomes a factor. And he was really, no, he was not happy to come out.
No, I understand that completely. On the other side of the coin, Jeremiah Masoli went 24 for 34 with 380 yards, which was an absolutely fantastic game for him. It's just unfortunate that performance gets overshadowed. But I mean, I suppose I can see it happening just based on the fact that the Blue Bombers won. But at the same time, Masoli had a fantastic game.
Yeah, a great first game for a team that has made a lot of moves. Sean Burke, their general manager, has done a marvelous job of bringing in players. We talk, anybody that understands the Canadian Football League, the conversation always comes around to who's your quarterback. Well, Masoli is Ottawa's quarterback, and he proved how important an experienced, good, if not great. This is a guy who had MVP numbers before he got hurt a couple of years ago. So, like Caleros, and I say this without being cheeky, like Caleros, he's a guy who's coming off injuries who could, in the right situation, do something really special. And Ottawa is a place that has done a few special things in their time. And we'll just see. I mean, I really like Masoli and his quarterbacking. He's had some tough luck, and that first touchdown he threw, man, was he excited when he ran into the end zone.
He definitely was. It was fantastic to watch. So I'm actually glad that the Red Blacks are clicking as well as they appear to be so early in the season. We'll have to see if that's borne out in games
Eastern
2
Division.
through 10.
Eastern Division's going to be tough. If the Elks don't play well, They definitely won't cross over, and that'll mean there'll be a real tough battle for that fourth spot or third spot, sorry, in both divisions. So, right now, it's always easy to say that the Canadian Football League is about Eastern Division teams not being good enough. I still feel, even though the three Eastern teams lost to Western teams this weekend, none of the losses were the kind of losses you can hang on to teams that aren't that good. They were very close, and the home teams did really well, and they happen to be all Western teams. So my best note is 3 quarterbacks played in one game that are Canadian, and all three are going to be factors down the road. So it was incredible. It was great. It was wonderful to experience. Let's go to the NHL, and the Oilers. Mikko Koskinen signs 2-year deal in Switzerland after 4 seasons with the Oilers. I guess he saw the writing on the wall.
After a fashion, Mikko Koskinen was one of the more controversial signings that Edmonton went through. I mean, just they were having issues on the back end, and they needed to firm themselves up. So they did actually sign Koskinen to a deal that a lot of people thought was not very good at all, which was sorry, I'm just pulling up the numbers now.
Well,
Basically, it ended this season. It was $4.5 million per.
They paid him. They paid him as a goalie who was going to be great, who hasn't been great yet. When it comes to goaltenders, you don't have to do that. You don't have to pay in the prospect. You can pay a guy who's really good. The Leafs wish they could pay a guy that they don't have to assume could be good. And now, with Koskinen, he's not going to get the money for a good goaltender because he wasn't really that good. The Edmonton team, as it turns out, was a pretty good team. They just didn't have solid goaltending all the time. And Smith gave them their best goaltending. So Koskinen gone is not a surprise. He read the tea leaves.
Yeah,
They said, go to Switzerland. You love the chocolate.
With Koskinen making 4.5 and Smith only making 2.2, and Smith locked up for next season, I think it's a no-brainer that they just let him walk at the end of the season. So.
Absolutely. If the roles were reversed for Toronto with the contract, and I hate to go to Toronto, but we do a Leaf show, so if if only Campbell was the one that had a contract, and Mrazek, who did not play well, didn't. I know they'd be in a happier mood. Colorado and Tampa Bay, the Lightning. In fairness to, if one were to be honest about this matchup, okay, you have to say that these are the two best teams playing for the Stanley Cup. And how do I define the best two teams? Well, you got the best team in the league against the team that won the Stanley Cup, Aaron. What better way to decide who's the best team and win the Stanley Cup?
No, exactly. And I mean, when you look at these two teams over the course of the season, the Avalanche finished with 119 points. The Lightning finished with 110. In their season series, Colorado was actually 2-0 versus Tampa Bay, who lost in regulation and in overtime. So you'll be able to catch the first game on Sportsnet and CBC on Wednesday at 8. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at Nate Mack and Nazem Kadri, who's unfortunately not available, Gabe Landeskog, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar. All of these guys are firing on all cylinders right now. Tampa Bay on the opposite side of the coin is facing some injury issues. There are a couple players that are not currently available to them, so that could be
just like the Avalanche, right? They you never know. The gamesmanship that goes on with lineups in hockey is not something that I miss. I can see it all the time, and I can see something going on here. But we'll see. Let's go over to soccer and talk about match day. Winless France faces Croatia in Nations League.
Yeah, so this is rather important. In the Nations League, France is the defending champion, and they're currently under a lot of pressure as they're hosting Croatia in a must-win game at Stade de France. They've picked up just 2 points from the first 3 games in League A, where only the group winner goes on to make the Final Four, and the last place team gets relegated. France is last with just 2 points. The Croats are level with second place Austria on 4, and they're 2 points behind the group leader Denmark, who hosts Austria in Copenhagen. So Didier Deschamps said Mike Maignan will start in goal ahead of Hugo Lloris. we'll have to see what happens there. But in this case, yeah, France is definitely looking at a must-win situation
Yeah, and
here.
not only a must win, they've got to do it with goals. They got to score and score and score in case the tiebreaker is how it goes,
Yeah,
right? So Portugal loses to the Swiss in Nations League.
exactly.
Team Canada in hockey shouldn't feel so bad.
That don't underestimate the Swiss, man. But yeah,
Never,
it was.
never. In sports, they're amazing. A very small country, but they've gone from the country that was skiing, and skiing to a country that plays team sports very well. Football, hockey, and what by football I mean European football.
Yeah, and Portugal left Cristiano Ronaldo at home, unfortunately, and as a
Oh boy.
result, yeah,
Oh boy.
57 seconds was all it took before Haris
Oh boy.
Seferovic scored, and that stood up for the rest of the game. So,
Well, how do you replace the best player in the world? Yeah, don't.
yeah, and that's the problem, right? So,
Absolutely, it sure is. Well, to put it in your terms, shenanigans. At least 5 dead, 27 injured as a wave of weekend mass shootings in the U.S. continues. This while the Senate is putting together a bill. Well, they haven't voted on it yet, so it's not a bill, it's a proposal. But it doesn't do as much as people hoped, but it does do something.
yeah, I mean, we're looking at least 17 shootings with 13 dead and 79 injured. And this all started over the Memorial Day weekend, which includes Philadelphia, Chicago, Houston, Phoenix, Memphis, and Chattanooga, Tennessee. Um, this is one of those. I mean, we're looking at since the May 14th attack in Buffalo, where people thought it was racially motivated. There have been 68 mass shootings nationwide, including the May 24 shooting at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas. So this is one of those. There is very clearly a problem here. Something
And
needs
the
to be
answers are
done.
clear too, Aaron.
Mhm.
Like what we saw with those two 18-year-olds, right? In Uvalde and in Buffalo, having 18-year-olds have guns, but also the story that hasn't broke as wide as it should. But I guess they're afraid of, the people on the right are saying, well, they're not talking about the attempted shooting of the judge, America's favorite left judge. Um, you know, I think they didn't because they don't want to give people they don't this copycat business that tends to be real. You don't want to really get into that. You've got a guy who decides to go kill a few people, including Mitch McConnell, by the way, enemies of Donald Trump, and he decides in the midst of doing this that he's crazy, that he's going to commit suicide, and then realizes there's something wrong with himself, and he calls the police and tells them there's something wrong with him. This speaks to the problem. This is one of the big problems. There are people whose minds aren't quite there, but they're given the freedom to do something stupid like purchase a gun and then act on those stupid thoughts at that moment. This guy had a moment of clarity, whether you agree with him or not, that he had a moment of clarity or not. If he could be stopped and questioned first, where you don't wait for him to figure out that there's a screw loose and that he's going to do something that's really stupid and shouldn't be done, and you ask them and you test them, it just doesn't make sense that they can't see. These shootings are speaking to some of the things that they need to do, Aaron. It's like, my goodness, it's like the dictionary is popping out. What do you do to stop gun violence? And you're seeing examples. These are poster situations for it. Unbelievable. I don't know. I guess you can tell this kind of stuff ticks me off because I just keep imagining. Well, I don't want to say it. I'm thinking that's bad enough about what happened in Texas, and uh, it just
That's an untenable situation all around, Frank.
it's
It really
terrible.
is.
I'm sorry for my rant. KS at Toronto's Pearson Airport could continue until end of August. Ex Air Canada exec says.
Yeah. So as you know, people have been having issues with long wait times arriving and departing at Pearson Airport. Those are apparently likely to continue until Labor Day at least. Passengers at Pearson have faced long lineups, delays, and cancellations, which some folk are quick to blame on COVID-19 restrictions and labor shortage. Um, now, the individual in question who was talking about this says Canada's Minister of Transportation, Omar Al Habra, has promised 400 new screening officers starting at the end of June, but they're not 100% sure if that's going to make a really big difference. Um,
Well, there's questions about travel with inflation, the price of fuel, you know, uh, uh, and everybody's been anticipating a lot of travel this summer. The travel business and people who love to travel have a lot of money in the bank they plan to use to go travel. So, you know, um, everyone should be ready for this. It shouldn't be a surprise. Inflation's more of a surprise than the fact that people were going to travel this summer, Aaron, don't you think?
Well, and I mean, there are some solutions that have been proposed for this as well, like streamlining or eliminating inbound legacy public health requirements, eliminating random testing, and investing in government agency staffing and technology so that they can bring their
Yeah.
service standards up. It's all part and parcel of the solution. In the meantime, I know Michelle went down to Maine this week. She decided to drive instead of fly just because
It's less
it made more
complicated.
sense. Yeah.
It's much less complicated. I used to in South Carolina. I used to stand on a dock, and I used to put some golf balls on the dock, and I'd see how far I could drive the golf balls into the ocean. I guess North Korea feels the same way about artillery shells.
I guess so. I mean, how are you going to know if it works if you don't actually test fire, right? So they have detected several flight trajectories believed to be North Korean artillery on Sunday morning. South Korea maintains a firm military readiness just because they are so close to North Korea. But, as a general rule, artillery fire tends to draw less attention than missiles just because artillery shells are less likely to contain nukes. But there is heightened tension, obviously, because of the saber rattling and the weapons testing that's going on.
Aaron, tell me about New Brunswick wind farms and how communities are reacting to them.
Well, there's a lot of NIMBYism going on in New Brunswick right now, not in my backyard. Um, Anse Bleu, there was a wind farm project that was supposed to be going in there, but it's officially dead. The 400 people near Caraquet had been fighting the project for more than 3 years. Navico Power, which is a renewable energy company in Fredericton, was trying to get that in. Um, but New Brunswick Power and Château Ventus were not able to come to a mutually agreeable solution to the delayed delivery of the wind project. So they finally decided that they were going to have to shelve it. Um, and the problem that we have here is that the community didn't find out that this was going to be put in there until 2 years after it was initially proposed.
Absolutely.
So
Let's add Toby Keith to Justin Bieber and his health concerns. Toby Keith letting people know that he has stomach cancer. My prayers go out to him.
no, we're definitely going to keep him and his family in our thoughts.
F cancer.
Yeah, he basically had to cancel his upcoming concerts, in particular the one in the Ohio State Fair. Now he spent the last 6 months receiving chemo, radiation, and surgery, and so far so good. But at this point, he's literally been exhausted by it. So all the best to Toby.
So the Patriot Front leader, I guess, it had problems with his truck rental.
Apparently, yeah. They were planning on crashing, and I hope not literally, but more will come out. Ohio Pride. The 31 Patriot Front members were arrested with riot gear after a tipster reported seeing people load up into a U-Haul. So I'm not sure if these people are aware of how this is supposed to work, but putting 30 people in the back of a U-Haul is not the greatest idea.
Wearing masks and carrying all kinds of stuff and loading up there. I mean, maybe really their intent was to go to Mexico.
I mean, you never know. It's entirely possible, but if one of them just decides that they're not going to drive right and there's an accident, there's a bigger problem on your hands.
Can we both say thank you to the person who called the police?
Most definitely.
Thank you.
Definitely thank you.
Keep it going. Cluster of storms take aim at southern Ontario Monday night, and boy, did I feel it. Wow.
So you've already had those.
I sat under my steel roof, Aaron. I sat under my steel roof, and our poor dog was cowering. Oh, the thunder was booming, lightning.
Now, this is a conditional threat that depends on the timing of a disturbance as it rounds a high edge of pressure. But we're basically looking at the line south of Kitchener, Hamilton, and St. Catharines. So everything in Simcoe, London, Sarnia, Chatham, and Windsor Way is looking to get absolutely pummeled. So frequent lightning, heavy rain, and potentially damaging winds. So if you've got any flags, now's the time to take them down. Make sure that the cover is securely on your hot tub, and you put your empties inside the garage and close the door.
Our prime minister was part of a super spreader, an invitation from President Biden in the United States and California.
Yeah, so there was a gathering of the Americas, I believe is what it was called.
The Summit of Americas.
Summit of the Americas. There we go. But yeah, it's basically a gigantic super spreader glad handing event. So unfortunately, Trudeau has been hit with it. The good news is he has been boosted. He has been fully vaccinated. So it's unlikely that what so many on the right hope will happen will happen. So
Well,
that's a relief.
the F Trudeau crowd have gotten their wish. He's not prime minister for a few days.
Yeah, well,
But only a
more
few.
power to Chrystia Freeland. So we'll see how well she does with it.
Aaron. It's because her name is Freeland, isn't it? It's because her name is Freeland, right? Hey, Aaron, thanks for this. You were awesome.
Thanks, Frank.
Okay, thanks to Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live, Aaron, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. The show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Candid Frank Live, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ciao for now.